In a dimly lit, quiet recess of the Gibraltar Museum, a strange skull with a beetle brow and a low forehead used to glower at the occasional perplexed tourist who wandered in from the colony's sun and warm beer. To most, this assemblage was just a peculiar set of bones, an intriguing oddity of a prehistoric era. But to those who understand the silent language of fossils, this skull is one of our most precious relics, a bridge to a lost branch of humanity. The skull of this young Neanderthal woman was blasted from Gibraltar's Forbes Quarry in 1848. It is a discovery that occurred nearly a decade before the official Neanderthal specimen was found in Germany's Neander Valley in 1856. Had history been slightly more attentive, we might not be calling this species Neanderthals at all. We might have called them Gibraltarians. But in 1848, the Victorian world was not yet ready for the idea of an extinct human relative. Evolution was a radical whisper, not a scientific law. Consequently, this incredible find was tucked away in a drawer, dismissed as a freak or a deformed modern. While the world waited for a revolution it wasn't yet sure it wanted. For over 175 years, we have used this skull as a mirror, but the reflection we saw was distorted. It was shaped less by anatomy and more by our own fear, pride, and a desperate hunger to find a creature that would confirm our own specialness. We were eager to declare our closest relative stupid, simply because they looked different. We needed them to be the other, the brutish, dim-witted foil to our own perceived brilliance. Today, we are finally beginning to see the woman behind the bone. When we look at the Gibraltar woman's cranial features, the robust structure, the sloping forehead, and the prominent brow ridges, we must stop seeing deficits and start seeing solutions. In the realm of evolutionary biology, form follows function. This woman was a masterpiece of biological engineering, adapted to the brutal, shifting climates of the Pleistocene. The Neanderthal body was built for the cold, acting as a biological furnace. Despite living in the relatively milder climate of southern Iberia, she retained the short, stocky build of her ancestors, a compact structure designed to minimize surface area and preserve body heat. In a world where a 5-degree drop in temperature meant the difference between life and death, her body was a fortress. Her large nasal aperture was not a mark of primitivism. It was a sophisticated internal radiator. It was designed to humidify and warm the freezing, dry air of the tundra before it reached her lungs. In the prehistoric context, every feature we once mocked was actually a survival advantage. Those heavy brow ridges acted as structural shock absorbers for a face that endured incredible physical stress during the processing of animal hides and the consumption of high-protein, rugged diets. We are not looking at a lesser human. We are looking at a specialized human who dominated the European landscape for 300,000 years, far longer than our own species has currently managed to survive. For over a century, the sloping forehead of the Neanderthal was used as proof of diminished cognitive ability. Scientists in the 19th century performed almost theatrical experiments to confirm their biases. They filled ancient skulls with mustard seeds or dried millet, pouring them into graduated cylinders to measure volume. They were desperate to prove that the sapiens' brain was superior. However, the data betrayed them. Neanderthal brains were not only large, they often overlapped with or exceeded the modern human range, reaching up to 1,740 cubic centimeters. Beneath the outer architecture lies a deep commonality. Modern analysis using computed tomography, CT, reveals that the internal structure of the Neanderthal skull was much more upright than the external slope suggests. Their brains filled every available millimeter of space, showing convolutional patterns and asymmetries that are the signature of a complex, distributed mind. The larger size of the Neanderthal brain was primarily metabolic and allometric, related to a larger amount of lean body mass. Their brains weren't primitive, They were just serving a different kind of body in a much more demanding physical world. Their neural budget was heavily invested in visual and motor control, essential tools for a predator navigating the treacherous terrain of prehistoric Europe. To believe that these people lacked intelligence because their skulls were shaped differently is like saying a high-performance computer is broken simply because its casing is a different color. To truly understand the Gibraltar Woman, we must step out of the museum and into her world. Imagine the Rock of Gibraltar 50,000 years ago. The sea levels are much lower. The rock is not an island, but a massive limestone fortress overlooking a vast, fertile plain. This was the Serengeti of Europe, teeming with ibex, wild horses, and the formidable woolly rhinoceros. The guardian of the rock was a master of her craft. Her life demanded a superb memory of terrain, weather patterns, and prey movements. She had to know which plants could heal a wound and which seasonal shifts signaled the arrival of the great herds. This required a network of cognition every bit as rich as that needed to survive in a modern city. Imagine her sitting by a fire at the mouth of a cave, the air smelling of roasted pine nuts and smoked meat. She wasn't just surviving, she was part of a culture. She likely spoke a language filled with nuances of the natural world, sounds for the specific texture of snow or the scent of a storm approaching from the Atlantic. To believe these people lacked symbolic behavior simply because their art was made of perishable materials like feathers, wood, or skin is to misunderstand the fragility of archaeological evidence. Most cultures in human history left no statues, yet their people sang, dreamed, and loved with a depth we can only guess at. One researcher aptly called the obsession with cubic centimeters the tyranny of brain size. It is the temptation to equate genius with volume. When 19th century anthropologists measured skulls to rank peoples, they found exactly what they expected to find, because their science was a tool of their prejudice. When they confronted evidence that Neanderthals had brains as large as or larger than ours, they found reasons to explain it away. But intelligence is not a monolithic score. It is a suite of adaptations. Recent studies have discussed the cerebellar proportions of Neanderthals, suggesting they might have had a slightly smaller cerebellum than modern humans. Some speculate this influenced cultural innovation or social cohesion. But this interpretation remains speculative at best. Cerebellar size varies widely among living humans today, and we do not assign higher or lower intelligence based on that variation. What the data truly reveals is that the Neanderthal brain was organized somewhat differently in its internal balance, even while following the same overall plan as our own. Their mental world was not empty. It was simply different in emphasis. They likely preferred stability to novelty, intimacy to cosmopolitanism, and deep apprenticeship over restless exploration. To imagine that the only valid form of human culture is one filled with beads and statues is to reveal the narrowness of our own modern view. The humanity of the Neanderthal is most poignantly seen in their scars. Across the fossil record, we find individuals who lived through horrors that would have killed a modern human without hospital care. Consider the famous Old Man of Shanidar in Iraq. His skeleton is a map of trauma. He had suffered a massive blow to the side of his head that likely left him blind in one eye. His right arm was withered and had been amputated at the elbow. His leg was mangled. In a brutish world, governed only by the survival of the fittest, he would have been left for the hyenas. But he wasn't. His bones showed that his wounds healed. He lived for decades after his injuries, reaching an age that was ancient for the Pleistocene. This means his people carried him. They shared their food with him. They valued his memory, his stories, and his presence more than his ability to hunt. This is the hallmark of a compassionate, moral society. And then there is the evidence of their burials. In the deep shadows of caves, we find Neanderthals laid to rest with intention. At the Shanidar site, Pollen analysis suggests a body was buried on a bed of wildflowers, bachelor's buttons, hollyhocks, and grape hyacinths. While some debate the origin of the pollen, the pattern of care is undeniable. They were the first humans to look at a cold body and realize that something precious had departed, marking that loss with dignity and perhaps even beauty. The most startling revelation of modern science is that the Neanderthals never truly went extinct. They didn't vanish into the mists of time. They walked right into our DNA. Today, billions of people carry a small percentage of Neanderthal genes, a legacy that helped our ancestors survive cold climates and strengthen their immune systems. We are not their replacements. We are their descendants. The Gibraltar ghost still lives in the blood of billions. The story of the Gibraltar Woman is ultimately a lesson in humility. We spent over a century mocking them to satisfy our own ego. But as we peel back the layers of prejudice, we find a species that was resilient, flexible, and astonishingly similar to us. Being human is not a single, narrow path. The Neanderthals survived through multiple ice ages, living in harmony with their environment for hundreds of thousands of years, a feat we have yet to match. The final message left behind in the limestone of Gibraltar is this: difference is not a hierarchy. Within that sloping skull bore a complexity equal in dignity to our own. To imagine her as dim is to cling to a prejudice. We are one family, shaped by the same stars and the same struggles. Her story reminds us that there are many ways to live, to love, and to endure. Ours is only one, and we would do well to remember the resilience and compassion of those who came before us.